how can you adjust your marketing efforts to increase the production, increase the number of people that are coming in for implants or Invisalign or whatever it is that's really driving the profit of your practice.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients podcast. My name is Dr. Len Tao. Hope everybody's doing well. Today's episode is Best Ways to Grow Your Practice in 2022. My guest is someone I've known in the industry for a long time. We have a lot of similarities when it comes to our feelings on reviews. Today's episode is going to be, again, how best ways to grow your practice. We're going to be talking about things like auditing your dental practice in a few hours, the consumer decision-making process, what is the foundation for marketing, and observation and trends in dental marketing in 2021. Obviously, I really like talking about dental marketing, so I'm excited to speak to this guest. Please welcome to the Raving Patients podcast, Nadeem Kassam. Nadeem, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Len. Appreciate you taking the time to record this podcast with me.
And I'm excited. I think you had mentioned that this is your first one, so I'm glad to be able to have you for the first time and break you into the podcasting world. So for those listeners and viewers, because it's being recorded and it's on video as well, and viewers, so why don't you explain to people or tell people, what you do, how you do it, where you're located. You're in Canada, so give a brief bio about you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Nadeem Kassam. I'm based out of Vancouver, BC, and I run a company called Connect the Doc, and we are a dental marketing agency that provides a combination of software and services to dental and orthodontic practices to help them grow and get new patients.
Perfect. Do you want to go into a little bit about your background so people understand where you're coming from as well?
Yeah, sure. I can, and I think maybe sharing the story of how Connect the Doc all came together might be a good idea. So, both of my parents are dentists here in Vancouver. They run a fairly successful cosmetic dentistry practice, and as a young kid, I was always in the office. I sometimes picked up the phone, helped them here and there with their marketing and ideas and whatnot. And then when I was graduating from college, I went to a small liberal arts college in Walla Walla, Washington called Whitman College, and I played tennis down there. Wasn't the brightest student, not going to lie. And so when it came time for graduation, my dad was supposed to be there on like the Friday night, for all the tennis events and whatnot, speaking with the coaches and having a team dinner. And he called me up. He said, "Hey, Nadeem, I'm not going to be able to make Friday night. Like, I have this emergency patient that I need to see, and I no longer can drive down." And I was a bit confused. "Dad, I'm graduating. This is, a once in a lifetime thing. I'm shocked it did it to begin with, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, like, I've got this patient. I don't know what to do with him." And I, without really thinking, this is back in 2010. I said, "Well, why don't you just tell your patient to go online and book an appointment?" And he goes, "What?" I said, "Well, we do it for hotels. We do it for flights. Like, surely somebody can just go online and find a dentist and book online." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't think that really exists. That's not something that we have." And I said, "Oh, cool. Okay." So, the whole weekend I was thinking about this idea, like, why isn't there like a service where somebody, if they need a healthcare appointment, can just go to the internet and like book one like directly online? And, after a lot of talking to other medical providers, mostly dentists, but in Canada, like we think about like private medical being like physio, chiro, massage, dental, ortho. It's all the things that our government doesn't pay for. And a lot of them had really positive feedback on this idea of having like this, Expedia for healthcare. So the early kind of foundation of Connect the Doc was actually a search and book platform. So we started, I think we launched in around 2012 in Canada only. And we really focused on growing that search and book platform till about 2015. And at that time, we were just running into a lot of problems with finances. People were coming to our site. They were searching for the various types of medical professionals. They were booking appointments, but we as a company weren't making any money. So it was very, very difficult for us to kind of keep going down this path. And as a bootstrapped, non-funded tech company, it was quite difficult. And so, we went back to our clients. We said, hey guys, like you guys got to start paying us. And they're like, there's other softwares that are better than yours for online bookings. I think we probably entered the online bookings market a bit early. It wasn't very adopted at that time. And so, yeah, we pivoted in 2016 to software and services that really help these medical practices grow. And at that time we had already expanded from Canada into the U.S. and whatnot. So, but yeah, that's kind of the background. Started off with online bookings and kind of morphed into various software and services for dental and medical providers.
Perfect. That's a great introduction. Thank you for sharing that story with me about your dad and online bookings. It's always something like that creates a product. Obviously, I created my own software for reviews, which Bird Eye acquired, but I found a niche as well and ran with it. And here we are all these years later, and things have like blown up beyond what I would ever have imagined. So let's get into some of the content we wanted to talk about here. Specifically, let's start with about auditing your dental practice in a few hours. Can you touch base on that and let the listeners and viewers know a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I think about practices, and a lot of dental owners will come to me saying, "Hey, like what can I do to grow my practice?" And my first question is like, "Well, what did you do last year? What did you do that worked well? What didn't go well? Where did you spend your money? How was that money, producing more revenue? What's the ROI?" So, I think that when you're thinking about auditing the practice, I think the goal needs to be to like identify the leaks in the business and find out the areas that you can improve on. And then before you go through this long song and dance of actually auditing, I think you need to have like an idea in your head of how much money you're willing to spend to actually solve the problems that you have, and how much of a time commitment you can spend, whether that's an hour a week or 10 hours a week, whether that's with you or it's with some of your staff members or team members. And once you kind of have this like framework for like how much time and how much money you can spend to solve problems, you can start thinking about how to grow your practice the right way. And that's where some of these, very simple questions that you can run, like, most practices are using Dentrix or EagleSoft or, one of these major softwares, and they've got all this reporting functionality that easy to use. For me, the first thing that I would kind of think about is, what was the production for last year, right? And then if you could break down that production by month, I think that would be really important too, especially with the coronavirus and the various variants that may have had an impact on the opening and the closing of the practice, especially in Canada. I think things are probably a lot more opened up in America than they are in Canada. There's still a lot of fear up here. So even if the offices were open, patients often were canceling or rescheduling their appointments because they just didn't want to take a risk to get COVID. So just, mapping that out, what was the production on a monthly basis? If you put down 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, and you can see by month your production, you'll have a good idea as to like, and maybe just thinking about, when did COVID hit? When was the office closed? Like you should be able to kind of get a sense of like what months and years have yielded the most amount of production for the office, right? And then on a similar kind of note, just looking at the number of new patients that you got on a monthly basis for each of the years, you may find that your number of new patients in December is at an all-time high because everybody's trying to use up their insurance before the end of the year. Use it or lose it tends to be one of the things that we all think about. So also, I don't know about you, but I've always found that things get really busy kind of in that September, October, November, December, but the summer months tend to be a little bit more quiet for many of our clients. So yeah, just really trying to understand the new patients, the months that the new patients were there.
It's funny you mentioned September. September in the U.S. is known as Sucktember because it's actually usually a pretty crappy month. Starting in October usually gets busier. Yeah.
Okay.
because it's usually a very slow month from production across the industry. You see that all the time, people calling it September. So I just want to ask you a question here. So, using these trends, okay. So
Yeah.
you look at your past years of collection or production collections, all these key indicators for the practice, new patients, number of new patients you're getting per month. What are you doing with this information?
Well, so that's what I would really like to know from a practice is like what is the production on a per service basis? So we want to find like what treatments at the office are generating the most amount of return on investment for the practices, which months are patients most likely to be coming into the offices. And then the question becomes is how can you adjust your marketing efforts to increase the production, increase the number of people that are coming in for implants or Invisalign or whatever, whatever it is that's really driving the profit of your practice, right? And then also from a marketing perspective, if there's a way to find a correlation between the production and the source of the new patient, that's another really, really important thing to try to find. Because if let's say you're doing a test on Facebook ads and Google ads, and all of your revenue is being driven by those Google ads, then the obvious thing to do would be to cut Facebook or to reduce the budget because you know that one action from Google is ultimately yielding more of a return on investment, right? And so that
Gotcha. That makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So it's like the revenue by source would be the audit that you would want to do, and it starts like with data entry, right? So if they're not tracking that information and nobody knows like where the patients are coming from, that would be the first action item for 2022 would be like get on the forums, like how did you hear about us, and then have a column in your practice management software to be able to track that, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anything else you want to mention about auditing a dental practice? What do you think? I mean, I know I mentioned a couple of the key KPIs, which is production, collection, number of new patients. You want to look for trends. Anything else that a practice should be looking at?
If I'm looking at what I think are the most important key metrics, I think there's probably 10 key metrics at the office and about 5 key metrics with actual marketing. So when I think of key metrics, I think of practice production. I think of collections where the goal should be somewhere in that like 96 to 98%. I think about profits and profit margin, the percentage of active patients that are scheduling their appointments, the overhead, where you want to keep it to like, somewhere between 50% for 50 to 60% if you're a general practice and less than that if you're a specialty practice. The average production per patient or like the lifetime value of a patient, the average production of a new patient. And then this one I think is the one that probably gets overlooked the most, which is the percentage of cases or treatment plans that are presented and how many of those actually accept treatment. So that to me, like the more I talk to my clients, because again, on our end as marketers, I can say, hey, you guys had a great month of marketing. We generated, 40 new patient leads for you. Like how is your production? And, sometimes if the response is like, oh yeah, we had these great consultations, but the patient said they want to think about it or they're worried about the price, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis placed on how can we increase the conversions of people who are sitting in our chair, who are interested in our services, and how can we get them to actually accept a treatment? And I think that's a huge thing that needs to be worked on. And then the other ones are just the number of new patients on average every month. And more recently, I think one to look at, especially with COVID and with some of the staffing challenges, is staff turnover. So I'm really curious to get your thoughts on that and how you've seen the trends with kind of staffing is.
Yeah, well, staffing in the U.S. is you hear about it all the time. Knock on wood, even though I sold my practice October 1st, so I was dealing with COVID over let's say it started in March, so it's a 15, 18 months of COVID we had to deal with. Luckily, we only lost one employee, and we run a really well-rounded ship. Everybody knows their job. But I see it all the time now that people are complaining about, hygienists leaving for higher prices, not coming back to work because they'd rather stay at home. It's a crisis right now. I literally just went to a restaurant and they have a big sign that says we're no longer open for dinner because we're short-staffed. So I think that's a major issue that's going to be very hard to immediately resolve, because when you hire a new employee, the amount of money you spend and the amount of time you spend to train that employee gets quite expensive. So I have a lot of concerns with that right now.
Well, and that's probably my biggest problem is when I look at practices who are not factoring in the cost of training a new staff member. That to me is something that goes unnoticed, and I mean it's a high cost. And then if they're not working, like most of the times these practices will hire somebody, if they're not doing very well, they're firing them within the first like month or something like that. They're trying to find a new person. It just gets a bit messy. So I think one metric again, like if you can keep the staff turnover to a really low number, and have the same group of staff helping you and growing the practice together, I think that's really important. Do you know if there are like rules in, I guess it's probably state by state, but like can the dentists provide bonuses and incentives and kind of like, not, I don't want to say kickbacks, but like some sort of like way to help these staff members share in on the growth of the business? Is that allowed?
Yeah, the dentist can come up with a variety of different things. I know many practices that give a portion of the profits to the team. They can give. We're fully independent, so we can kind of come up with our own creative ways to really make sure employees stay. So employee retention is really important, but also even hiring people are offering signing bonuses now, which is insane to see in dental, just to bring them on board. So there's a lot of creative things that a practice can do to, like I said, attract and maintain employees.
Yeah, and I think that the owners of dental practices need to be a little bit more open-minded to like implementing some of these, I guess, newer strategies or things that they never thought they'd have to do, to keep the practice, running smoothly and having the best staff members working for them.
I agree with you 100%. So let's jump to something else we wanted to talk about, which is I'm really curious what you have to say about here, because this is very much in my ballpark, is what is the consumer decision-making process nowadays?
Well, so, I'm still of the opinion that so when you break down advertising in general and marketing in general, you have your targeted advertising and you have your non-targeted, right? Non-targeted, you're looking at things like billboards, television. It's a bit old school. Sometimes social media would fall in it, where you're basically visible to people. And you know, if they're interested in the services, they contact you. And then targeted, you're looking at people who are identifying, hey, like my tooth is hurting, I need to find a dentist, or I have this gap in my teeth, I need to find an orthodontist. They go to Google and they search. So like the consumer decision making process is it's kind of broken down into this idea of like awareness. So like they feel pain or they find you through some sort of, non-targeted type of advertising. Then they do their search. So they look at you on Google, they look for a dentist on Google. They evaluate their options. And this is where, we're both very passionate about review generation, because, if I need a dentist and I just moved to a city, I'm going to Google, I'm typing in dentist near me. I'm looking at like 3 or 4 offices. I'm reading their reviews and I'm making my decision based on some of the great reviews that the office might have. Right. So after the patient has kind of evaluated 2 or 3 options, they'll contact the practices. A lot of the times, if an office doesn't pick up the phone, that new patient lead is gone. They're on to, tab number 2 or tab number 3, right?
Yep.
And so, that idea of what we call speed to lead in marketing is so crucial. And there's lots of like different tools that you can have, because the other thing that I wanted to mention is that especially with like millennials and younger patients, they have their own way of communicating. And if they want to text message an office, they're not going to call. They're going to do everything by text, right? If they want to chat with somebody at the office, like, we have these chatbots. We have a product called Walter, which is a website chatbot, and the office is able to chat directly with the patient, on the website. So, finding out the methodology of communication that's most convenient for the patient, I think, is another way to really improve the way the practice can run. And then the last part of it is conversion. It all kind of ties together with the communication side of things. Just, how do we get patients to say yes? Like, what can we do if they say, hey, this is too expensive? Or, how do you answer questions like, do you have payment plans and what is the cost of this? And I think another thing, like when we jump into the trends, if we have time for it, a lot of people are like, when they're asking questions, they're kind of cutting all of the small talk and they'll pick up the phone and they'll just say, hey, what's the cost of Invisalign? That's all. Like, they haven't asked anything else, but all they want to know is about cost. They're very, very price sensitive. So finding good ways to answer that question and try to really uncover, like, is it the total cost of the treatment, or do they have to pay up front, or would they be comfortable paying with a payment plan? Like, there's different ways to accomplish converting a patient by a question that they're asking.
Well, remember, you as a marketing agency, your job is to bring patients to the practice. Once they get to the practice, the rest is up to them. So if they don't have great systems in place, if they don't have a great new patient experience, if they don't have great, flexible financial options, they may be getting patients, but if they're not converting them, that doesn't do the practice very well. But they think it's your job. That's not your job. Your job is simply to bring patients to their door, their phone, and the rest is up to them. So I'm very, very concerned when I see really good agencies out there lose dentists because the dentists understand that it's not just what they're doing, it's what the practice is doing as well. So I just want to make sure people understand that.
I agree completely with you, but I also think about my parents and I think about all the dentists that we work with. And one of the things that they basically, like, the kind of the common denominator of all these practices that we work with is they tend to just want to get the new patients and they don't really want to do a lot of like the background work to get them. They just want to see the patients in the chair. So, one of the benefits, and without trying to plug my company too much, but I will here for a sec, one of the things that's nice about what we do as a tech company and as a marketing agency is that we're able to build in software that we feel solves problems that the offices are not solving themselves. So, like, one of the most recent softwares that we recently launched is a CRM for dentists. So the idea being is that if somebody chats with the chatbot or goes through the landing page or fills out a form on the website, like however they're reaching out to the office, we get that in a dashboard. And then the office has like one centralized place where all their leads are, where they can drag those patients through the funnel and really try to make an effort to get that person to schedule an appointment. And so I think what we can do is we can help with technology and tools to get that person, or to get the staff more likely to get that person or that prospective patient into the chair for a consultation. I think the next piece is trying to find a way to help them go from in the chair to accepted treatment.
I agree with that 100%. So let's move to another topic here. What do you think is the best foundation for marketing one's practice?
So I think you and I will both agree that the number one thing for practices is reviews. When we typically are talking about a foundation, we're talking about having a really solid website, something that's mobile friendly, or at least, good on the mobile phone, a practice that has really solid reviews, and a practice that has, the name, address, phone numbers and whatnot cleaned up so that Google can read the information. They're not confused by all these other sites that we've never heard of, but you need to do it. It's very inexpensive. So to me, that's the foundation. It's like, once you've got a good website, once you've got Google reviews, and once you're kind of like in Google's good books, then you can start adding other types of marketing, whether it's search engine optimization, paid ads, social media, etc. And all that we kind of encourage our clients to do is just to be very, very mindful of time and money for the campaigns that you're running, so that you can add more funds to the things that are working and you can subtract from the things that are not working.
And I agree with that 100%. I always state, hey, if you're going to get a new website, what's the reason why? Many people say they want a new website because they want to increase the number of new patients they get. If you are not visible and credible, which is what the reviews and the listings do, it really doesn't matter about adding a new website because people still can't find you. So, I think reviews are, by the way, the most important foundation. Website and being found are second and third. And then after that, you can add all the other aspects in there. But if you don't have the foundation set up, all those other things are going to fail. 100% agree with you. There's no question about that. So where do you see things trending in 2022? What things should dentists pay attention to? Where do you think marketing is going to take off? Anything specific? Like, I still think video is really important. Chatbots, I think, are really important, or chat services, because it gives people a really great way to reach out to the practice. But where do you see some of these trends and observations that you think are moving along as we get, through the 2022?
So for me, the way that I think about this are, what are the things that we can control and what are the things that we can't control, right? Because I think one of the trends that I continue to see happening, both in Canada and in the US, is that corporate dental offices and corporate practices, they continue to be very, very aggressive with their acquisition strategy. And they're causing a big headache to the family run small practices, because they're offering these exceptional new patient promotions, $29.99, get exam, x-ray, cleaning, free Sonicare toothbrush. Like, they're spending all this money to get somebody in for $39, right? And it's a blessing and it's a curse. So on the one hand, it's nice that if you are looking to transition out of your practice, you can sell it to a corporate entity and you can kind of like wash your hands of your practice, just let them kind of handle it. And so, for the people that are ready to retire, okay, great, right? But for the practices that are fairly new and that don't want to sell and that want to be a bit more, they want to manage it themselves. One other thing that I'm seeing a lot of are these offices are starting to go into a lot more specialty services and a lot more high dollar services that require a lot of like attention to detail and a lot of education and a lot of, fine tuning in the craft. So some of those services would be a lot of dental implants. And then specifically, I'm seeing a big movement towards all on four dental implants, because those are highly profitable and they're awesome. A lot of practices are starting to offer Invisalign, and they're using Invisalign with really low prices to get patients or prospective patients from orthodontic practices into their dental offices. I've seen a lot of things for like sleep apnea, TMJ, TMD, those types of things. In Canada, I don't know about in the US, but in Canada, a lot of dentists are starting to do like Botox, where they're doing like injectables and stuff like that. So I think you're starting to see this like shift towards practices where they used to be very like drill, fill, bill, like let's just get them in for the cleaning. Let's, get the crown on them, whatever it may be. And then now they're kind of like shifting their mindset to like, okay, like how can we be a bit more boutique? How can we help these patients with some of the higher end stuff? And a lot of those practices are still getting a lot of their new patients from referrals and from people who are happy with their experience and just telling their friends about it. So I think that's another trend. And then, like we talked about earlier with the staffing, I think that's going to be still one of the biggest problems for practices in 2022. So I guess my message to any owner listening to this is keep your staff happy. Make sure that you're giving them time to rest. Don't burn them out. Like, everybody's a bit delicate right now. And I think staffing is going to be a huge problem. And yeah, I don't know how to probably fix that outside of encouraging any office managers and staff to talk to their owners about what makes them happy and what they're kind of looking to get out of their work, and vice versa to owners to talk to the staff and ask them that question, like, what makes you happy and what can we do to make this working environment, a better place for you?
Yeah, when it comes to some of the trends you talked about, practices looking for the high value services, I think one of the things we'll see more of a movement to there versus trying to attract just a general dental patient who could come in and just need a cleaning and they come back every 6 months. But in order to do that, you have to have the reviews. You have to have the foundation set up. You have to be willing to spend some money, because attracting the higher ticket items requires a higher monthly spend. But if everything is set up properly and you're spending the money, you should see a decent return on investment. And if you're seeing a decent return on investment, you should continue to feed that investment or feed that way of attracting new patients, because it's only going to bring in more new patients as time goes on.
100%. And so like when we're talking about what is so important when we're doing advertising is it is the internal tracking that happens, because as long as if a dentist knows that they're spending, call it $1,000 a month on paid ads, and that $1,000 per month is getting them, call it, 10 leads or 10 people who have like raised their hand, say, hey, I'm interested in this service. And if let's say 5 of those people come in for a consultation and 3 of them accept treatments, like, and the treatment is for something that's $10,000, Like that's $30,000 of revenue that you've generated or production to the $1,000 of spent, right? And when we talk about that consumer decision making process earlier, like part of the reason why we want to have the chatbots and we want to have the reviews and we want to have the great website is because every person that's coming to that site is an opportunity to convert. And if we can remove the leaks from all that funnel, whether that's the outside funnel marketing to get patients through the door or the funnel from once they're in the door to accept a treatment, the offices are going to become significantly more profitable. And I think when you're looking at these big corporations, the one thing that they do pretty well is their systems, right? Their operational prowess is it's very noticeable. And that's why I think a lot of the smaller practices and family run practices should place an emphasis in 2022 to really improve their case acceptance and their systems to growing.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You mentioned overhead as one of the important KPIs. It's amazing when I talk to dentists and I say, "Do you know what your overhead is?" They have no idea, and I don't know how they run their business. And I always point out when I talk about numbers, especially on the podcast, I'm a huge fan of Shark Tank. I think it's called Dragon's Den or something in Canada.
We still get Shark Tank.
Okay. But they originally started as Dragon's Den. And, so I'm a huge fan of that show. And they always say you have to know your numbers. And it's amazing to me that there's so many dentists who just don't understand the numbers game. They don't get it. They have no idea what their overhead is. They don't know whether overhead should be placed. It just blows my mind sometimes. You can't run a business well if you don't have that information. What is the cost of customer acquisition or patient acquisition? How much are you spending to do that? They don't know. They have no idea. So I think something that's missing is definitely the business side of things and the marketing side and connecting those two. That's definitely a missing piece in the industry.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, it's like ask 5 dentists, just ask them a simple question. What's your salary? Like they don't even know what their own salary is because a lot of these dentists don't take the money, like they don't take a salary. It's a percentage of their profits. They do all of their accounting. And then at the end of the year, they're like, oh, like your profits were $400,000. They write themselves a check for that money and they kind of move on. Right. And so I think getting to the bottom of all these important metrics to like really try to improve the practice. So super important.
Gotcha. So is there anything else that you think is important to get across to the viewers and listeners?
I think we covered a lot of ground today. Probably a lot to digest, but at the end of the day, like my job is to help practices grow. So maybe we leave it off with just having an open end. If anybody needs to talk to me or wants to talk to me about their practice, in particular what their challenges are, what their goals are, I'm more than happy to be a sounding board and to help where I think I can.
So just so the listeners know, I thought I was going to have to end this podcast a little early. I was expecting someone at my house. They're delayed. So I'm going to spring something on you, Nadeem. We didn't talk about this because I didn't think we would have time, but I do a section on the podcast. If you've listened to anything recently, it's called Pod Decks. I pick a deck and I ask like literally lightning round questions. And because we have a few minutes, I want to do this on you. And I really like the one called The Hustle, which is all about business. So I'm going to ask you these questions. The rule of thumb here is try to get through them fairly quickly. You don't have to go into this long drawn out answer. Okay. And then after that, we'll have people, we'll throw out the special offer you want to throw out to the guests and tell people how to get in touch with you. Okay. So
sounds good.
Number 1, do you have a system in place to keep yourself organized?
Yes.
What is it?
Oh, okay. Every morning I fill out this piece of paper here. You can see, and it has my day, it has my 3 goals, and it has my 3 tasks that I want to get done, as well as some notes. So while computer softwares are probably good to have, my number 1 way of keeping organized is just keeping tabs of my day first. And then I have a repository of all the tasks that I need to do in a software called Monday.com. So that's like my task management software. And then I'm also a very big fan of using your email and your inbox to keep organized. And there's 2 tools if you're using Gmail that I highly recommend. One is called Boomerang and the other is called Superhuman. So those are the 2 email services that you can plug into your Gmail. Exceptional for keeping organized.
Perfect. Number 2, what entrepreneurial tips have you discovered to keep you focused and productive in your day-to-day busy schedule?
So 1 is waking up early. I think starting your day early is super important. I'm a big fan of exercising every day. Now, granted, I haven't been able to do that early in the morning, which I would really like to do. But I think if you can stay active, that's important. Not working for more than an hour at a time without taking a small break, even if it's just to get up, walk around, stretch your back, those kind of things. Nobody has the focus to be in it for 2-3 hours. And if you do, you feel like for the rest of the day, you're just like, oh, I've worked so hard. So take those breaks. One other thing that I think is important is really having a pulse on your estimates for tasks. So if you think something's going to take you an hour to do, like if it takes you 5 hours to do, you need to revisit how you're estimating your tasks, because ultimately you want to find a block of time block the specific task that you're doing and try to stay within the realm of a reasonable time to get that task done.
Great. What do you think your unique skill is that has helped you become successful?
I think on the one hand, like just the perseverance and like the hustle in me. We never really talked about my entrepreneurial kind of spirit from a very young age, but my parents were born in East Africa. They got kicked out of Africa. They moved to England with no money. They became dentists, moved to Canada with no money. Stereotypically speaking, like we were penny pinchers, right? For a long time, like it was always about the hustle and trying to make money here and there. So I think that just that excitement to get up in the morning and, to go to work and to try to help people out, I think that's really important. I think specifically with, Connect the Doc and in our business, I love just chatting with doctors and dentists and really trying to find out like what makes them tick. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Is it to be as successful as possible? Is it to make money for the family? Are you doing it so that you can spend time with your family and with your kids? What do you like to do? What do you not like to do? So I love chatting with doctors. And a lot of the times they call me about personal things that they want to talk about, because I like being that sounding board. So I think listening, as much as I have talked on this podcast, I think listening is 2 times as important. And I think that's part of the reason why I've done well and I've been successful.
Perfect. Who is someone in the industry that you look up to or respect?
Ooh, in the industry. Well, you, of course. I mean, you're the godfather of reviews, as we say, right? So I think we've known each other for almost 10 years now.
Almost 10
gone
years
to a
now,
couple hockey games, and
yep.
You're a tennis player and I'm a tennis player. So I also think there's just a lot of startup founders that are outside of the dental or the medical tech space that I aspire to be. But I'm also a bit of an odd duckling in the tech space because I didn't take any funding or financing, and that's pretty rare for tech companies to be bootstrapped. So I kind of go at my own pace, and I try to extract as much value from all the people that are around me and learn as much as I can from them.
Perfect. What has been your most satisfying moment in business?
Oh, man. Well, we walked away from a fairly substantial acquisition offer a few years ago. Now, granted, that was pre-COVID and maybe things would have changed, but to be able to just say no to a lot of money and kind of hold my ground and say, listen, I think we're worth more and I want to have the time and the flexibility and the freedom to grow this business the way that I want. I would say that even though that's a fairly non-documented event that happened, like for me personally, it was pretty cool that I was able to say that, and I was proud of myself for not getting swayed in the corporate direction.
Perfect. And last one, what deserves all your attention but seldom gets it?
Oh, man. I don't know if this is the right answer to that question, but I think I need to read more books. Like, I should be giving a lot more attention to reading books. I'm much more of a podcast listener, and I just like listening to the radio. But I do think that there would be a lot of merit to me spending more time like reading and learning. I have this I've got like a pile of 10 different books that I'm supposed to read, and I haven't even cracked them open. So
great answers. That's really well done. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. So why don't you toss out an offer or two to the people watching and listening, and let people know how to get in touch with you if they want to find out more about what you or Connect the Doc can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website. It's joinconnectthedoc.com. So if you go to joinconnectthedoc.com, you can see all of our services and all of our softwares that we have. As far as a promo or an offer is concerned, for sure, the free consultation or like the marketing audit. I can do a full marketing, like a comprehensive marketing audit on your practice, on your competitors, where you need to spend more of your time and attention. So I think doing that would be great. And then we're happy to do free trials of our chatbot. So if you're looking if you've got a great website, fantastic. If you don't have a great website, I can help you with the website too. But the chatbot is just a piece of code that we stick on your website. We have a custom chatbot map. And what's nice about our chatbot is that you don't actually have to respond to the conversation. A robot handles it, and you have the ability to jump into the conversation if you choose that it's a good person to be jumping into the conversation. So we're happy to do a free trial of that for all of the wonderful listeners of this podcast.
And then what is the best way to get in touch with you if they have any specific questions?
Yeah, so my phone number, I've got an American and a Canadian, so I'll throw both of those out there. Phone number is 415-287-4999. That's my US number. Canadian number is 778-882-6663. And my email is just my name, Nadeem, Nadeem, at connectthedoc.com.
Perfect. Well, this was very enlightening. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your expertise, your visions of things in the dental industry. Guys, if you like the episode, please reach out to Nadeem for some assistance. I've known him for a long time. He's a legitimate guy out there, which is why I wanted to have him on the podcast after all this time. Share the episode, subscribe, tell your friends about it. And it's really important to us. I don't really promote this as much as I should. At this point, it's probably going to be a new company handling a lot of the production behind it. So please let me know how things are. If you like it, if you don't like it, tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly about the podcast as well. And I'm always reachable, as you know, at len@drlentao.com, or you can check out the ravingpatientspodcast.com. Nadeem, thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, thanks for joining us and have a great day.